Welcome to Make More Marbles. My name is Brad Hart, and we're here to interview the game changers, the future makers, the co-collaborators and creators who are here to collaborate with one another towards a better future for all of us. Enjoy the show. We've got a great guest coming up for you right now.
I'm all good.
Welcome to Make More Marbles. I'm Brad Hart, and this is Katie Krimitsos. I don't want to say it wrong, so I said it slow. How'd I do?
Dude, that was awesome. That is pretty much like exactly what anyone needs to do is just follow the rhythm of all of those letters. So very well done, my friend.
My pleasure, Katie. And Katie's from businesswomen Rock. She's a first-time guest here on Make More Marbles, and we're super excited to just get into it with her here for a little bit of time. Let's call it 44 minutes exactly. You can time us. We're going to talk about how businesswomen rock, and one of the things that I think is most important in the world. So I'll just frame this with a story. I met Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, and she's doing incredible work, and I love her husband Jesse Itzler's work as well. And she said something that hit me really between the eyes. She said the most underutilized resource in the world today are female entrepreneurs. I was like, "You're right, Sarah. You're right." So for me, I'm like, all right, well, what can I do to align myself more with the female entrepreneurial community? Because even as hard as I've tried, it's like 1 out of 5 is kind of the best we're doing is finding like these really rock star women entrepreneurs to interview and to show the world what the amazingness that they're doing. So I just want to connect with more hubs in those, in those networks and communicate with more people that are kicking butt and moving the narrative forward. So what has been your experience in entrepreneurship so far? Let's kind of start with your hero's journey, Katie, and get us up to speed on what has all gone on and transpired that has brought you to where you are today and rocking women's businesses. I love it.
Yeah. Well, as a side note to hit right on what you were talking about, that is exactly why I started Biz Women Rock as a podcast, which is how the whole brand started. And I'll explain the prior story in a second. Was because I knew so many genius businesswomen, and I just wanted to have a space where they could be found and they could be highlighted and they could, more and more people could see. Because I don't know if I really believe that, the underutilized resources are these businesswomen. Because basically it's like about like there are so many of us. We're just not always seen. And so it's a matter of like, what can I do to be a light to bring more and more women up, to bring more and more women into the space and have more and more women known, because we're here, we're doing
I know.
thing.
I'm seeing they're coming out of the woodwork now. Lynn Perkins just, was on the show. She just introduced me another 2 dozen. I'm like, all right, cool.
Anyway, So, so a little bit about the history is that I was fairly late to the game of entrepreneurship. I dove into my very first entrepreneurial endeavor when I was about, oh my goodness, how old am I now? 30 years old. I'm about to turn 39. So almost a decade ago. And it was my husband's business that he had just started. It was a local entrepreneurs association called Tampa Bay Business Owners. Basically, if you imagine a chamber of commerce, but it was just for entrepreneurs. So he had just started it. The business model was really a membership model, and we serviced our members through live events. So it really was an events company that had a membership model attached to it. And so my role in the company as a co-owner of that company eventually was as the operator. So while he was the founder, the guy whose name and face was really attached to the company, I came in as the person whose skill set lent itself to the organization of the company and making sure that our members were getting over-delivered on everything that we were promising. And so that meant a lot of how to engineer and foster the most amazing relationships, how to take 10 steps in our processes and turn them into 2, and how to make sure that all of our members were moving through the experience of being a member and constantly like wowed by what was happening, whether they had just become a member 7 days ago or they have been members for 7 years. So that's really where I cut my teeth on business. I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial family, very blue collar family. So like that was my first experience of really like living that. And that was pretty much my kind of in the trenches MBA, if you will.
I love that, Kate. And honestly, you know, it mirrors a lot of what I've also experienced in entrepreneurship is like, you kind of get pulled into it. If you knew how hard it was going to be before you started and you know all
There's
the
no
struggles,
way. I
you
mean,
would have never started. But I
no
really have
way.
this theory, like life just gives you just enough to keep you excited and growing and motivated and progressing, but it's not too much to just crush your spirit.
Oh, well, I mean, I've had a few of those moments,
All
but
right.
I think we all do, but I think that in those moments of like, oh my gosh, I'm being crushed, and I don't know what to do, and I feel like I'm crumbling, or I'm oh so tired, or I'm oh so how in the world are we going to make this happen, or oh my gosh, there's no money coming in, how are we going to make this thing survive? Like, it's in those moments that I am convinced, just out of my personal experience and the women and men that I have just seen in their own businesses over all these years, is that those are the moments that distinguish the lifelong entrepreneurs, because those are the moments that you are forced to go inside and find your why, and to find that passion, and to find that, like, that fire that will then like allow you to take that next step, take that next step, take that next step. And it's a personal growth journey. And
Mm,
so if you, somewhere along the way, I think I realized that, like, instead of, I started it thinking that there was this end game, that there was an end point called success. And so all I needed to do was figure out how to get from here to there. I'm a very process driven person, obviously. And what I have discovered after all of these years of now, from Tampa Bay Business Owners onto my own company of Biz Women Rock, is like, there ain't no end point. Like, it is literally just the journey, and who are you becoming and who are you evolving into during this journey. And one of my friends explained it one time years ago, kind of just having like a life, philosophical conversation of like, this experience, and I'll specify it for entrepreneurship, is sort of like an upward spiraling staircase. And so it's
mm-hmm.
sort of the same thing, but every single step gives you a different perspective as you're looking down into what's in front of you. You're a different person when you're up a couple of levels and in a different spot, and you see things a little differently, even though this thing that we're looking at is business. It's a business,
Yeah, it's like spiral dynamics. You can only perceive the level of consciousness you're at or below.
Yeah,
You can't really
exactly.
see like the stuff about, or you can kind of conceptualize it, but you don't really get it until you're there.
Because you're not ready for it. Because you have, one of the things I'm constantly talking about with women who are part of the Biz Women Rock community, whether they're a private coaching client or whether they're part of my masterminds or whatever it is that this vehicle of business, like, we do a lot of like practical, like, goal setting and how are you strategically getting from here to there. But the point is that it's good to goal set and to see that vision of what you really want. But the truth be told is that what do you now have to do to evolve into the woman who's ready to achieve that goal? Because you're not there yet. So much of that work is the personal development, that willingness to grow and expand and try new things, and pivot and move and all that sort, and learn new skills that help you become that woman who then can realize that goal.
Got it. Yeah, I love that. And that's beautiful. It's like you have this desire, right? And you're inspired. You got your what and your why. This is the thing I want to manifest in the world, and this is the way I'm going to manifest it, or the reason I'm going to manifest it for. And then what transpires are the co-conspirators, right? The conspiring with the other folks, right? And
Yeah.
eventually what you need, want, and desire eventually manifests through this process of growing and changing, and the pain that you're given and the challenges that you're given that you have to overcome in order to become the person for whom the things you originally needed, wanted, and desired showed up effortlessly.
Yep. Well,
It's a really
boom,
beautiful
right there.
boom.
Boom, drop the mic.
Podcast over. Game over.
Yeah.
Katie, all right, let's make this practical and tactical for people.
Yes.
So how do you help women rock their business?
So a little bit of a backstory on that. So I just talked about Tampa Bay Business Owners. What happened in 2014, a little prior to that, was that I realized that I had a deep passion. I've always had a deep passion for women and really uniting with women, connecting with women. And then through this entrepreneurial experience that I had, I was like, I fell in love. I so identify as an entrepreneur, the freedom, like this, it's something I could talk about forever and a day. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have learned all this stuff over all these years. If I can focus in on the niche of women, wouldn't that be amazing? So I started the podcast, again, as sort of a starting platform for me to just start connecting with all these other awesome businesswomen, and B, to share what they were doing with the world. So I didn't know what in the world I was going to
You
be,
haven't
but
made $11 million from podcasting yet? Because it doesn't have to do a giant check. Second you launch your podcast, it's like, here's $10
I
million.
know that didn't happen in the first 3 weeks.
Lying around, I was waiting for you. Here you are.
I know. No, I had no plan, which I don't advocate now, but I had no plan other than, let me create this platform. I think it might take me somewhere. It followed my curiosity, right? So what has happened in the almost 4 years since that happened is that it really launched an entire business for me. It's taken me a long time to figure out what the heck that business is, and it's constantly evolving. But as it lies, I really get to be the leader of an entire community that supports businesswomen on their journeys of entrepreneurship. So what that means practically is that I am providing private coaching and strategy, providing masterminds, providing live events, providing tons and tons of education so that women can get better at using this vehicle of business to create a life that they really love, to create a productive life, a profitable life, a purposeful life. So that's really my mission here. And it's a big mission to help more and more women do that. What I continue to see with women along the way, and it's just a really interesting thing, is that so much of my work comes in to really bringing to the surface a lot of the personal self-doubt that we really have, because we're these amazing beings who are doing, like, all of these businesswomen that I know are up to something really big. And whether the business itself, like the products and services that they're providing, may or may not necessarily be significant in that matter. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're just sort of a widget, right? But their purpose behind doing it is really, really big. So my job often becomes helping women sort of see their own light, because oftentimes we have a very unique challenge, which is called, like, I am my own worst enemy, right? I am my biggest critic. I've got a bunch of other responsibilities on my shoulders. So how do I get in the mindset and the belief system that I actually can have it all? Like, I actually can do everything that I really want to do, even when I have a brand new baby, even when I have all of these other responsibilities that I'm supposed to take care of. How do I continue to feed my soul and believe that it's all possible? And dealing with the self-doubt and the kind of the weird confidence issue that comes along the way, and all of those, like, little I'll just call them, like, blocks that keep on coming up that keep us from really stepping into that light. So that's probably been one of the most surprising joys that I get to do, and that's really where I stand, that I get to, like, reflect that light back, which is pretty cool.
I love that. That's beautiful. And you're definitely rocking your mission. I see, your stuff comes up from time to time, and I see it, and I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to get it. But that's just me gushing and being a fanboy. Some of the people that you've actually helped, and maybe give a story or two that kind of showcase what the transformation looks like, right? That heroine's journey, I should say, for these women that start where they're at, they meet you, and then they have their world rocked in due course as a result of working with Women Rock.
Oh, I have a really great one that's just top of mind right now. So I have a client, Nicole, and I had known Nicole. She was sort of in my space for years, but never, I wouldn't call her somebody that I talk to all the time. And she ended up coming to my first retreat, which happened right around this time last year. So in late 2016. And it was an intimate retreat, 13 women in a house, really working on what can we possibly create in the year to come. And being the practical organizational person that I am, like, let's put some practical tactics to that, right? So she came, and she has, and even at that time has, a concierge business. So kind of personal assistant, like high-end personal assistant. So her mantra really is, if you're doing stuff that you don't love to do and doesn't make you money, that's what my agency should really take care of. And she's awesome. So anyway, so she, at the time that she came to the retreat, she was sort of like having like kind of like one-off clients, having a little bit of success. And there was a moment that we did a hot seat, and she happened to be the person who volunteered. And so we did a hot seat during this retreat. And there was just one moment where she had this, like, I don't know how to charge for my services, because I'm having such a hard time in the space that I'm in of not saying how much I am per hour. And I even though I know that I'm worth this much per hour, it keeps me in that conversation of the $10 an hour assistant, the high school kid that, could come and do something for you. And she's like, it just is so uncomfortable. And I keep I keep throwing myself under the bus and getting clients who don't want to pay me, but I'll say yes because I want another client. So it's all that stuff, and really wrapped in a lack of like self-confidence of like, who am I and what am I here to do? Just in that hot seat, the major thing that came out of it because of the conversation with all the other women was her finally getting that she doesn't charge by the hour, she charges for the solution. She then continued to work with me. She's still a one-on-one client of mine. She has been working with me all year long. And through that one major like aha, that completely shifted her entire business for the year of 2016 to where now, fast forward, a lot of the work that we did was on, getting clear on that, going and getting the right clients, attracting the right clients, making sure her brand was on point for that. And now over all of these months, we're now working on building her team and getting her really out of the dailies and having her be the personal brand of the company. And just doing some deep work to do kind of bigger bang for your buck type of stuff. So now, her marketing is looking like going into talking to the high-end apartment building or condo building that is in downtown. So instead of one by one type of a client, she can go there and do like concierge type services that can be attached to people going and purchasing condos there. So it's just really smart. So she's coming to this year's retreat again. Her business has grown 300% in this past year.
Wow. That's
300%.
awesome.
And it's just she'll be the first to say this. It was that dealing with the emotional stuff that comes with this growth, this type of work. And there have been multiple times along in this 1 year journey that I've been privileged to have with her where she's shown up going, I want to throw it all out the window. And my job is just to listen, because if I try and be the strategist in that moment, it falls on, on a blank slate. Like there's nothing, that's not the conversation to have. Right. So it's my job to listen and to reflect back to her the vision, So it's been incredibly awesome just to see that transition. And I'm very lucky that I get to experience that quite often.
That's beautiful, Katie. And thank you for sharing that wonderful, heartwarming story. And I see a lot of, we geek out on this thing called wealth dynamics. You ever taken it?
But I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I'm a supporter and I see like supporter stuff going on, like seek in every encounter to diagnose, create space around the problem, serve, support, and solve. Because if you don't feel seen, heard, and understood, there's no way you're going to let me solve your problem. So
nope.
That's just a really key piece there that most people miss, is like just getting really clear and creating space around that huge, massive issue. It doesn't make it so massive anymore, because most people are just pent up all energy and they just want to release that. And the way to release that is just to let it kind of flow. Yeah.
And that's so true. And that, that you bring up the idea of that clarity is, I think that's what, those of us who get to work intimately with people in whatever space it is, I think that's such a great gift that we can provide, is just that space to be able to release. And from that cathartic release and asking the right questions, clarity can come ridiculously quickly. So like at the beginning of an hour, you can feel like, oh my God, the world's going to end. Life is falling down on me. And 45 minutes later, you can feel like, I know exactly what to do. I know the next steps. And on top of that, I feel super confident that I'm going to rock it. So let's do this. And it starts with getting clear. That's the only way you can move forward.
And being honest, right? Not lying to yourself, just being clear. I mean, like, this is the situation. It's no better. It's no worse. Here it is. Yeah. And now what's the vision to close the gap to the next thing? So you've done a lot of personal development work. I hear you drop some landmarky type things and here and there. What has been the most impactful personal development work you've done on yourself? Because, ultimately the people listening, like the audience needs to understand, like, your business can only grow if you do.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're just the bottleneck through which everything gets stuck and doesn't pass, then the business is kind of screwed up. And so are your clients and everything else. Like, people don't have problems in their business. They have problems in their life that show up in their business. So what has been some of the most impactful work you've done? I know I have obviously I'm pretty partial to Tony Robbins' work, but I'd love to hear yours as well.
Well, those are the two that I was going to mention. Those two specifically have been the most impactful for two different parts of my life. Landmark, interesting story. So Landmark, I was introduced to, my husband and I were married for about 9 months. We had been together for 4 years before that, lived together, totally like, everything was great. Got married 9 months later. We were that close to like, what in the world did we do? We're done. And so he had gone to Landmark about a month prior. And then I was like, I need to go. It transformed everything. It gave us a new language to talk to each other and to hear each other and to really own who we were being in the relationship. And I, I'm really introspective and I'm very honest with myself. And so I am more than happy to sort of describe like what is versus like what I'm making it mean, so it was just massively transformative. It's still to this day, we have our business coach who had been with us in our local company for all those years, because my husband and I owned our company together. Obviously, there's a lot of, personal relationship things that come up as you own a company with your spouse. He ended up marrying us, and he still is someone that, and he's Landmark certified. Like he's like one of the higher people up in Landmark.
I think they call them grand wizards or something.
Yeah, something like that. He's still somebody that we call upon whenever we are not hearing each other. And I'm always amazed at how quickly we can move through the muck and how well versed our friend is about like kind of cutting through the crap and having us get to that place of like, what do we want to create? Right. So that's been incredibly transformative in my personal life. Tony Robbins just by far, I think has impacted me like more holistically. Like, I've always been aware of his work. I was always listening to something, from even decades ago, but I don't think it was until our local business was about 3 or 4 years old that a friend invited me to go along. He was like a platinum member. So he gave me a free ticket and I was like, okay. The main area that it transformed for me immediately was money. Because I did like, his, the Unleash the Power Within, and it transformed many things for me, but money and my money mindset and the fear of not enough money and moving into this money space of scarcity and into abundance completely changed my life and the life of every business and thing that I've touched since then, because it got me out of a space of being so fearful and showing up into business so fearful and so tight and so desperate in wanting to grow. Like there was desperation before that of wanting to grow because it needed to bring in money, and that was why, in order to make me feel safe, versus showing up to a business wanting to share a message and wanting to give value and really wanting to make an impact and knowing that there is money on the other end of that and really getting it. Like there's a difference between knowing it and like getting it and acting out of that. So a weekend completely changed me forever on that. And I mean, just trickle all that stuff down into just about every area of my life. But those two have been probably the most transformative for me.
Oh, so huge. And you hit on a few really important pieces. It's like business starts out as like something that you want because you want a better life, right? And then it gets like, you get into it and it's hard and it's scary sometimes and all this stuff starts happening. You don't know what's going on. And then you grow a little bit, grow a little bit, but eventually it can become like, once you fix the money piece and you just realize that money is just an energy that we try to quantify. It's not a perfect quantification, but it's essentially that what you talked about, that value transfer that we talk about, right? It's like, I'm giving in order to get, and I'm getting in order to give. And it's like breathing, right? You wouldn't take a breath and hold it and never let it go.
Exactly.
So that's the piece. And then it becomes this playful energy you get to play with, right? And eventually you get make enough money and you're like, oh, well, I have all the money I could ever need, want, and desire. Now it's like, what can I create in the world? And use money as that channeling force to drive it. So that's a really beautiful reflection. I'm grateful for it, because I think Tony Robbins, even though I had made a lot of money up until that point, my money story was still a very like heavy, energetic quality that I hadn't quite worked through yet. And he really helped me just to make it fun, and enjoyable to make money again.
That's the thing is like, one of my many money stories was like, it's hard to earn money. I can't, my background is German, very hardworking, very blue collar, yeah, exactly. Like you work hard to make, and that's how you make money. And that's a continual lesson that I'm evolving, and constantly, learning about how to show up better and better that way. I won't say that I've mastered it, but I've come a long way. But to seeing like it is fun. Like that's where you get to, if you can live there, that's where businesses play. That's where life is play, because so much of all of our stress is like, how are we going to quote unquote survive, right? Which to most humans is, how am I going to have enough money to give me food and shelter and all of that good stuff. So it's really dissecting, okay, figure that out, and figure that out not from a space of fear, but figure it out from a space of what do I love and what do I have to contribute, and believing that that will take care of me, and then keep going up more layers and more layers as that stuff can continue to have gasoline put on it, basically,
Yeah.
and you can do big stuff there.
We've got something for this actually, because we talk about, the Make More Marbles mission is to make more for everybody, but the ultimate goal is not to make more marbles, it's to make enough marbles. And what I mean by that is, like, when does everybody on this planet have food, energy, water, and shelter?
Yes.
And then they can start to shift their time, energy, attention from just surviving and acquiring those things to, which is like 70% plus of the world right now, to now, okay, we have the basics covered. There's a floor through which nobody can fall. Now, what does it look like when everybody's creative and contributing at the highest level, instead of just living in fear and scarcity? I call it lighting the fuse: food, energy, water, and shelter, FEWS. So once you light that fuse, then the next, I think, age can begin. And, it might sound woo-woo and hippy-dippy, but if you start reading stuff by Peter Diamandis, Greg Kurzweil, you see this exponential trajectory that technology is taking. We have a supercomputer in our pocket that didn't exist 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We're flying people to space. We're doing cool stuff. Like, you got to understand, like, the rate of change is exponential, and it's growing faster and faster. We already have the technological capability to provide for all these people. Now it's just hey, are we going to take up the banner of changing the way that it's always been, so that no longer do we have to live in the story of there's not enough to go around? Because it is.
Yeah. And even if you want to move that into sort of the more privileged of us who don't necessarily, quote unquote, have to worry about that every single day in the same manner that a lot of people do, there's still the fear and scarcity there. Like, and that's what I feel a big part of my mission with Biz Women Rock is, if I can help women break through this, I'm struggling, I'm barely getting by, I love my business, but I'm either making great money but working 20 hours a day, and that's not abundance and wealth, right? Or I'm barely getting enough money, and I feel like I'm constantly in stress. Like, even in that space, like, we have the technology, the education, like everything that we could possibly want is in front of us. So if I can do my job of helping women both practically and mindset wise, like emotionally and spiritually, if I can help them break through and really leverage this vehicle of business, so that that's not the stuff that they're worrying about. They're not worrying. Like, they know how to take care of that. They know how to bring in, they know how to give, and then they can continue that breathing in and out. Just like you said, they can give more. The more women, and I'll specify because I'm in this niche, the more women entrepreneurs who have businesses that are out of the, oh my gosh, I'm barely making it, and into totally abundant, giving into this world, receiving because of that, the more women who are in that mind space, out of the stress and into the abundance, the more we give. Like, there's so much more abundance in this world because we give. Like, that's what we as women typically do. Like, we give, we love, we hug, we share. So it's like, it's beneficial for everyone.
And it starts with giving, right? That's the key piece that you got to shift into to become a successful entrepreneur. And then it ends with giving as well. When you've created that overflow, that abundance, it's giving back as well. You need a way to generate money, certainly. You need a way to grow it. Investorship, that's the next piece. And then also be a philanthropist, right? Eventually, and give it away. And that's that 3G cycle that we talk about a lot. So that's a good segue. Like, what are some of the other things besides entrepreneurship that you're either investing in or looking at as a giving back mechanism? And what causes are you supporting, or what's really important to you in that realm?
So I'll give a practical tip on sort of the mindset and the setup on how I do this. But it's in money organization. A couple of years ago it was that I took a little late to the game on this, but it was like a reorganization of my finances, where I was like, okay, I want a giving bucket. Like, instead of me just sort of randomly going like, oh, what, I want to go donate over there or whatever, I want a giving bucket, and I want to know that I can take out of that at any given moment and go give. And so, that happened years ago. It there's automatic transfers that go into there every single month. And right now, what that looks like is I, about once a month or once a quarter, I'm constantly looking at like what's around me that has a need that I feel really passionate about, that I feel like I could give to. Most of the time it's super duper anonymous, and it doesn't mean it, like, I'm not making a big thing out of it. Like, we're big bird people. Like I love animals. I'm vegan. I have so much passion towards the wellness of animals. And we're big bird people. We have a bird. So there is a parrot rescue not too far from us. And, a couple months ago, she was trying to raise funds for a sick parrot. And I was like, okay, I know exactly where that money comes from. Boom, I can go donate to her. And that means the world to her. And it, I can make that transaction, and that feels really good. Sometimes that looks like someone in my world kind of needs some money. And I know that I can either privately or just, hey, as a friend, hey, why don't you have this? Or I can go buy them something that they need. I like not having too many rules to it, but I know that is there, so I can give, and I can take from there and immediately go give to something, whether it's a formal cause or whether it's a person or whatever that is.
I love that. Yeah. And just having that sense of variety as well, right? It's not just, I'm only doing this. Like I've got recurring subscriptions on my credit cards for all kinds of stuff that people pitch me on the street. Like I'm that guy who buys it. Yeah. Like don't tell the Red Cross, but I'm the guy who's walking down the street and people pitch me and they're like, oh, Dr. Jeff Borders. I'm like, sure, why not? And I still get dinged every month. And one of the ones that's really close to my heart is veterans, right? So I'm always making donations to charitable causes for veterans, and specifically I have a lot of Navy SEAL friends. And I'm always donating every month. I get hit for, a donation to the Special Wounded Warrior Fund or whatever it is, the Special Operations one, though, specifically. So all I'm saying, people, is that people listening at home is have something that you give something to, and see how it transforms your life. It doesn't have to be a lot of money. It could be $10, right? But just something that is consistent, that you're giving to, that you're feeding energy into, and just see how that starts to manifest back in your life. Because it's really a true statement. Like when you close off and you get insular, less starts flowing, right? It closes everything off, and it gets really tight, and it gets worse and worse and worse until it's so painful that you have to come back into the light and start giving again.
And I would actually challenge you, if you're in a place of feeling like I need more money right now. I don't know if I'm going to make rent. I don't know if I'm going to go do whatever. Take $2 and go give it, go find a way to give it. Because it's in that moment of giving that you then release yourself to receive, and I actually constantly am challenging myself with it, because because nothing is automated on my end. It takes conscious effort to remember, what am I giving to? What am I giving to? And I find myself in those moments of oh, yay, I hit that big financial goal that I had, okay, question immediately needs to be, great, how am I giving back? Right? What am I doing to give back? So, and even if you're, in the beginning phases, or don't feel like your business is profitable quite yet, there's still ways that you can give. It doesn't have to be huge money amounts. It can be small money amounts, and it can be time too. But that energy flow is really what matters.
Yeah, that's the important thing, because the universe doesn't care about whether it's money or not. That's just an abstraction. We used to use clamshells, and we're going to use Bitcoins or whatever. It's that's, just the story we have right now. That's the current story. But it's that giving, it's that free flow of energy in and out that people seem to be stuck on. And you can just feel it. Like when you run into somebody who's living there, and you just know it. You just know that that's their story, because you have been there in your past and worked through it yourself. So, Katie, thank you so much. I just want to maybe get a few little rapid fire things out of the way here. So what are some of the best books you're reading right now? Let's start with that.
Ooh, right off the top of my head. Oh my goodness. Profit First is a book that I just started reading. Same concept of the idea of putting your business money in buckets so that you are from day one actually profiting. It really challenges the idea of the poor entrepreneur who suffers for X amount of years and barely pays herself a salary at all until she finally kind of hits big, right? And then she'll get paid out. And
sounds a lot like The Richest Man in Babylon, the 10%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's very smart. I mean, it's very common sense, but it's very smart. So
that's what we need. Common sense is not common. They should call it super locked in a box under the ocean sense, because
but common sense is the thing that makes us all go, yep, yep, yeah, I knew it, I got it, So, but it's good to keep on being reminded of that. So, Profit First is a good one. Just something top of mind that I read years ago, but I was reading again, is Built Built to Sell by John Warrell.
Great book. I make all my clients read that book.
No joke. I love that book. It's parable style about how to take a business that is 100% reliable on you and your personality and the work that you do and create a systemized approach to it so that it is sellable, but not for the purpose of selling it if you don't want to do that, but for the purpose of you enjoying it and actually running a very legit business. So it's just very beautifully told, easy read.
Also, The Go-Giver by Bob Berg is a similar type of book like that has that story and parable feel to it. It's just a really satisfying book to read. And you can read both of those books in probably an afternoon. They're not long.
Yeah, exactly. And just the other thing, it's not a book, but I have been really obsessed with Oprah's Super Soul Conversations podcast lately. I love Oprah. And when I feel, obviously those first two are very business. But when I feel like I need to talk about the holistic soul and I need everything, my business is 100% in line with like a big purpose for me, totally integrated into everything in my life. But there are conversations that happen that are bigger than that. And so I love listening to all of the conversations that she's having that are really talking about the bigger purposes, the bigger questions, and really, dissecting some of these things about, our ego being in the midst of all of this stuff, and how do we transform beyond that, and how do we just all of that kind of stuff. It's just so fascinating to me. I love it. It totally fills me up.
What a beautiful world we live in with all this wonderful information. If people just pick it up, it's all free. It's all available. We're putting it out every day. It's incredible. Like, we live in the best time that's ever been in humanity.
I know.
If you buy into what the news is telling you, you think it would be horrible, but it's just
there's
incredible.
so much love in the world, and there's never been a better time. And I hope it continues to grow. There's never been a better time where it's the most available, the easily available, to go find it and
Right.
to have it be as prevalent. Like, these conversations like this are so much more prevalent and accepted than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So,
Agreed.
I mean, it's, this idea of like, hey, we're talking business, but we're sort of having this very spiritually deep conversation. Like, that would never happen a decade ago. And now it all gets to live together and vibe together. And it just, it fills the person who needs to hear that.
Well, and on that note, I mean, about the Make More Marbles mission. You've checked out some of our stuff, and you kind of understand that what we want to do is help entrepreneurs, investors, and philanthropists to win more by collaborating with one another. So part of the way we do that is by making sure that every guest on our show is asked the same question, and that's, what is a way we can help you connect the resources, opportunities, people, and systems together that are going to get you to the next level or move your mission forward faster.
I mean, just kind of right along the lines of what we've been talking about, like getting this message out to all of your listeners, out to anyone who's already attached to your brand and the awesome things that you're doing, which is, why I love showing up, because it helps and gives me an opportunity to share my mission and for people to hear this passion. And I can barely, you're walking around, I'm seeing you on video right now, and I'm like trying to jump out of my chair and, but like, that's
standing desk.
Yeah. Like, that's the power of this. And that's what I really appreciate it. And which is really like, the more and more I can share my message, and the more and more I can share it through the lens of my eyes and my experience and how I really, and why I'm here and what I'm here to do and how I want to help. Like, that's the best, that's what I can ask for.
I always tell people the reason I became an internet entrepreneur is because it was the only job that didn't require me to wear pants.
Please do not move the video down.
No, I definitely have pants on. I can't quite kick my leg high enough to show you, but I'm
Brad, it's okay. There have been plenty of times where I'm on calls with clients and I'm like in my jammies on the bottom and in a nice shirt on the top. I'm like, do not stand up, do not stand up, do not stand up.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show today. What's the way people can get in contact with you and find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, my home is at bizwomenrock.com.
That's bizwomenrock.com. Check Katie out. Subscribe to her list. Katie, you guys are on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, all that? Okay, great.
All of it, yep.
Definitely subscribe to the Biz Women Rock podcast. And thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you for being here on behalf of everybody in the Make More Marbles community. Thank you. And we hope to have you back on again sometime.
Of course. Thank you so much, Brad. It was such an honor.
Thanks so much for listening to the Make More Marbles podcast. For more tips, hacks, and strategies to create an amazing, abundant life in your health, wealth, and relationships, whatever that means to you, head on over to makemoremarbles.com. Check out our cool explainer video about what we're about and join our community of entrepreneurial game changers. We want to help you level up your life in every possible way. And don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and please do leave a review. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next podcast.